Well, I'm originally from South Africa, as you may be able to tell from my accent, but I left when I was fairly young, when I was 16, and I moved to the UK. I was lucky enough to get a university education in the UK, where I lived for 6 years, but then eventually the weather, which was so miserable and so grey, forced me to leave and come to a sunnier country, and I ended up living in Barcelona in Spain, where I am now, and I've been for the last 23 years. The consultancy is an online teacher training and development company. Myself and Gavin Dudney are the directors of the company, and we do two things mainly. We run online teacher training courses for language teachers, and that's mainly in the use of new technologies in the classroom, so the application of things like blogs or wikis or podcasting or Moodle and so on, how to actually use those with your English language students, or any language really. That's one part of what we do, and the other part is consultancy work for educational organisations. So for example, for universities or for organisations like the British Council, we may do consultancy work in setting up online teachers networks, or in designing bespoke, tailor-made online courses. And we also do quite a lot of face-to-face training. So we run some of our online courses in blended mode, which is part online and part face-to-face. So we'll have longer face-to-face courses, and also shorter workshops, presentations, conferences, and so on. So we do quite a lot of different things, but it's always to do with technology, language teaching, and the application of all of these technologies to actual classroom practice. Our clients are language teachers in the main. For our online teacher training courses, we have individual language teachers signing up just because they're interested in their own professional development. And we also have organisations like universities or the British Council putting groups of teachers onto our online training courses, and also into face-to-face training with us. That's one sort of clientele base that we have, and then the other clientele base are the organizations themselves. So recently, for example, we were involved in setting up online teachers networks in Southeast Asia between 6 different countries, and that clearly was done at a governmental level with organizations like the British Council involved. So we have from individual teachers, by themselves signing up on courses, right the way through to larger organizations or even consortiums of universities, with us designing courses or running training for them. Yes, originally I was a technophobe, in fact. I'm not really a gadget kind of person. I'm not the person who rushes out and buys the new iPhone as soon as it's on the market. I'm really interested in teaching and training. That's what I love. And my involvement in technology really started from a pedagogical standpoint. I was hired to be the academic director on an online MA program in the late 90s, and that was in the early days of online learning. And I really had to learn on the job. I had to learn how to use the virtual learning environment, which was WebCT, and always from a teaching point of view. So I had no real technical training as such. I don't have a technical background. And I have to say that at first I found it quite frightening and quite overwhelming. And I was your typical technophobe teacher, I think, feeling threatened by technology, which I think is a completely normal response. And over time, though, I've grown to love technology, and I'm now, I wouldn't say I was an evangelist, but I'm a tech enthusiast. So I have a lot of devices myself, I use a lot of technology. Of course, I teach online and I train online, and I also use technology in my face-to-face teaching. So I've kind of taken me time. I moved from being a technophobe into what I would say is now a tech enthusiast, somebody who loves technology, as long as I can see the use for it. I think if there's a principled use for technology, then I'm all for it. If it's just technology for technology's sake, then I think better leave it in the box. My advice to a technophobe is really start small and start simple. Find something very simple and dip your toes in the water. So it might be a very basic online tool, something like Wordle, which is wordle.net, which creates very beautiful word clouds online. That's a really simple, easy tool to use. And teachers who are afraid of technology can start with something like that, where you just can't go wrong. There's nothing that you can't do with it. And then slowly from there build up. I think teachers probably don't realize that their students are often very savvy with technology, and that's okay. We don't need to be experts in technology, we're experts in the language. So you can often get your students to help you out. You might, for example, set up a class blog, which is also a fairly simple thing to do, or get a student to help you, or get a student to set up the blog, and then use it with the class. So start small, start with one class, and start simple. That would be my advice. Mobile learning is something I've been interested in for the last 2 years or so. It's something we're hearing more and more about. I think one of the misconceptions, though, that there is in the profession is that mobile learning means learning with mobile phones, whereas actually it means learning with mobile devices or handheld devices. So in that we could include e-readers, iPods, digital cameras like this flip camera that I'm filming this interview on, all sorts of mobile devices. One of the other misconceptions around mobile learning is that it has to be while you are mobile, so while you're on the move. And the typical sort of example that's given in our profession is that you're sitting on the bus looking at English language flashcards. But I think that's probably the most dull possible use of mobile learning. What's much more interesting is to bring these mobile devices into the classroom and to help students use mobile devices to actually produce. So using their mobile phone cameras, for example, to film each other, to produce things, that's where the potential, I think, in language learning lies. And that's the area that I'm most interested in. If I were in charge of a budget, a tech budget for a school, there are certain things I wouldn't spend the money on. The first thing I wouldn't buy would be an interactive whiteboard or an IWB. That seems to me a waste of money. It's an expensive piece of hardware. You can get as good results just using a projector and a computer connected to the internet, which is really what you want to use these devices for. Connecting up to the internet, bringing the outside world into the classroom. I think schools often get it wrong in terms of they spend 80% of their budget on the hardware, on things like fancy computer labs or IWBs, whereas they should be spending 80% of their budget on teacher training and 20% on the hardware. If you have well-trained teachers who know how to use a lot of the tools that are out there and that are free, you're going to get a much more effective use of technology in the classroom, a much more principled use, and your students are going to benefit from that. Yes, I certainly do still teach. I teach mainly online, teacher training, so running online teacher training courses. I do that regularly. I also give face-to-face teacher training workshops, which might be an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours in a school, up to mini courses, also blended teacher training courses. And then I've recently gone back, in fact, into the language classroom, and I'm teaching a group of pre-intermediate students and a group of intermediate students at the moment, which is wonderful. I get a chance to try out all sorts of new things with technology, and I find the response to students, trying to integrate things like mobile phone cameras or Facebook and so on, has been fabulous. It's something that I love, the teaching, both face-to-face and online, and I would hate to ever have to give it up completely. Yes, well, to relax would be a good thing. I don't have a lot of free time. Running our own company is fairly time consuming. But what I like to do is, apart from sitting on the sofa with my iPad, is to go out hiking if I can on the weekends. Because I live in Barcelona, the Pyrenees are very close, very easy to get to. So we have the mountains on the one side, and then we also have beautiful beaches, beautiful coastline, and I like to spend time on the beach in the summer as well. So my relaxation is often sitting on the beach or sitting in the mountains, admittedly with a Kindle, often reading a book, but I like to also do a bit of hiking, and travel, of course, is something I get to do in my job and I like very much. My next goal in life? Well, I have an immediate goal, which is to finish off the 2 books that I'm writing at the moment. I've only just started and should be finishing soon, hopefully. One book on mobile learning and the other one is on digital literacies. Both are going to be written with my co-author Gavin Dudney, and the digital literacies book is also with Mark Pegram at the University of Western Australia. But apart from work, what I would like to do is actually work a little bit less. That would be my long-term goal, to have a better work-life balance and spend more of my time doing the things that I enjoy, my hobbies, traveling a bit more, working a bit less, and trying to find time to enjoy life, which is what it's all about at the end of the day.